Hello, I'm Eddie and welcome to 7 Minutes of Science, the weekly science news show in which we try to run you through the 7 biggest stories from the world of science in 7 minutes or less so that I can avoid getting a gobful of cinnamon. I'll be honest with you, I think this week is the week I fail. It's been a big week and there's some complicated stuff coming up. It's a week that involved healing the sick, reviving the dead, and a peculiar amount of weird sex. Please understand, none of that weird sex involves me. If I was going to make a video of my own weird sex, I wouldn't upload it to YouTube. I'd upload it to a fetish site because I understand that only people who are very, very disturbed would want to see that. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. Can we have a time up there? And we'll be ready to go in 3, 2, 1. Okay, Monday, normally a story involving the word sex emerged in Scottish Lake would be on a news show called 7 Minutes of Horrifying Crime, but this one is firmly in our wheelhouse. An article published in Nature by John Long from Flinders University in Australia, and so many numerous co-authors. Link below for those who want to know, or down there. About the copulation of Antioch placoderms has revealed that may well have been the first creatures to invent sex. The creatures that lived in lakes in what is now Scotland around 385 million years ago. This data isn't saying that they invented sexual reproduction, i.e. 2 DNA molecules getting jiggy with it. No. The creatures instead, they're what's called a clasper organ, which is used by modern day fish when they want to bring together for sex rather than the sexual reproduction that used to occur, which was just dumping eggs and sperm into the water. Don't knock it till you've tried it. I love this story for a bunch of reasons. One is that it's another bit of information on the journey that took us from protein strings in a pool of goop to the human beings that we are today. I also like it because of the fact that the fish they found this organ in is called M. dickey, and I'm not making that up, I wish I was that funny. And also because I mainly associate Scotland with bagpipe music, which I genuinely believe is the opposite of sex. Anyway, now we're on to Tuesday's story. Science gave a man the ability to walk again. Obviously he could walk before. Well, not obviously, there are plenty of people born with congenital. I'm sorry if I've offended anyone. Anyway, science got a man to walk again. A team of Polish doctors working with UK scientists, do you hear that, UKIP? Polish people and British people working together made a man walk again. Anyway, they've restored the precious gift of legs to Derek Fidica, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong. Derek has been paralysed from the waist down since he was stabbed back in 2010. Normally, when you hear a story like this, it all comes back to stem cells. Not in this case. This time we're talking about the olfactory and sheathing cells found in the snoz region of the face. Those are technical terms. It's basically from the nose, taken out, implanted in the damaged area of the spine, as well as some ligament from the guy's ankle was put in together. Now, the outstanding thing about this story, other than the fact that Professor Jeff Roseman and his team have managed to let this man experience sexual feeling for the first time in 5 years, I think that's amazing. But there's also the fact there's no chance of rejection because it entirely uses cells from inside the patient's own body, so they're a complete match and it's not going to be that problematic, which is great and amazing. And I just think this is another wonderful step on that site on the road to the weird science fiction future we seem to be heading towards. Also, BBC filmed the entire thing for Panorama. I can't recommend watching that enough. Wednesday, so if you had to guess how long the ancestors of modern humans left Africa and started the unwavering procession to total global domination, you'd be forgiven for thinking high, but some new information has come to light. We did previously believe this was about 150,000 years ago. Now they found a human from about 45,000 years ago, and here's some big chunks of Neanderthal DNA. Now, I have Neanderthal DNA, you have Neanderthal DNA, everyone has Neanderthal DNA. But in this case, the Neanderthal DNA hasn't broken up as much, it hasn't degraded as much, it's in bigger chunks, which means that this person was closer to the point where humans and Neanderthals got it on. Now, Neanderthals don't live in Africa, so the only time we could have met them is after we'd left. They're saying this was about 50,000 years ago. And weirdly, this is the strange bit, Neanderthals probably died out around 41,000 years ago, so yeah, try and work out what happened there. We are terrible. But we also managed to conquer a planet after we did that. In only about 40,000 years, in about 50,000 years, we managed to take over an entire planet. Suck it, every other animal on Earth. You haven't taken over any planets. We've got one, and we've got robots on another. So, okay. Thursday, as we return once again to our friend the Rosetta probe and its intended target, comet 67P. As you can see from this picture, the comet is spewing out more gas than we've seen in previous images. But more interestingly, we know what those gases are: hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, hydrogen cyanide, formaldehyde, sulfur dioxide, and carbon disulfide. Now, these compounds contain a lot of the elements needed for life, which is pretty interesting because there's been a lot of discussion about how those elements would have wound up on our planet in the first place. And there's been a lot of talk about how water ended up here, and a lot of people believe that comets were probably responsible for bringing water to Earth. Now, if that water was loaded up with all of the elements needed to create life, that would answer a lot of questions and explain a lot. Really very interesting. And this is one of the great reasons why it's good to go into space and study a comet, because comets exist either in space or surrounded by the smouldering ruins of a once great civilization. And in either instance, hard to study, but in this one we've managed to do it, and that's great. Right, now on to Friday's big news story. Australian doctors, always at the forefront of keeping people alive, despite the fact that they have made the terrible decision to live in what can only be described as a poison-soaked murder desert, have managed to transplant a dead heart into a living human. We've been transplanting hearts for years, but it's always been a heart from someone who has been certified brain dead. Then they yank the heart out, go put that in another person. And at this point, I know I should make a Temple of Doom joke, but frankly, I think that's a terrible movie, and I'm not going to give it the time. The other Indiana Jones movies, other than Crystal Skull, are all right, but that one's terrible. I hate it. Anyway, usually the heart cannot be used after circulatory death has occurred, but Professor Peter McDonald and his team has managed to transplant a heart that has been dead for 20 minutes. They've done this by placing the heart inside a device they're calling the heart in a box, a name I wholeheartedly approve of. This heats up the heart, restores the beat, and puts nutrients to it. It's estimated that this could save up to 30% more people than are currently being saved by current transplant procedures. That's amazing, that's fantastic, and I promised you that reviving the dead was going to be in this. You didn't believe me. That heart was dead, and then it was alive again, and it was in a dude, and that dude's now alive. It's a whole thing. Finally, whales are big. That's not the news part. You should have been aware of that beforehand. But what you might not know is they used to be smaller, which I didn't know until yesterday, which is, I mean, what was Echo 2, The Tides of Time doing? It should have mentioned small whales. Anyway, they did grow really rapidly at one point. We didn't really know why, but it now turns out that that growth actually coincides with the same time that megalodons, the giant sharks that you might be aware of from the classic movie Giant Shark versus Mega Octopus, during that period, they died out around the same time. Now, this could just be correlation and not causation, but this was all worked out by Dr. Catalina Pimento and Dr. Christopher Clements using optimal linear estimation. Now, like I say, could just be coincidence, but I can't help but feel that not being eaten by giant sharks would be something that would be good to your longevity as a species and your ability to grow super massive. And I'll be honest, I came up with an entire joke about trying to have the whales killing off the sharks so they could get big, and there was a whole... I was trying to work out a way to a so-and-so sleeps with the fishes punchline, but I couldn't make it work, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even told you about the joke I didn't do. Anyway, and finally, so I'd like to draw your attention to the music that has been playing throughout the show today. You're probably wondering where it came from and who wrote it. The answers are space and the sun. The human who gets credit for writing this is Robert Alexander. Robert is a grad student at the University of Michigan and splits his time between solar physics and music, because why the hell not? And he's been working with sonification, which is turning data into sound, which seems crazy until you realise that every graph you've ever seen is data turned into something for the eyes. And this particular bit of music is a solar storm data, and it's all music generated by algorithms being driven by that process underneath. So the data drives every sound that you're hearing here, and it's beautiful and amazing. And the sun has done 18 galactic circuits. It's 18 years old, and now it's a single out. Brilliant. And stop. And I went over there, didn't I? We'll have a link here to the video of me doing the cinnamon challenge. I am so annoyed right now. I've got a really clever bit in the script where I just go, bugger, now I have to do the cinnamon challenge, but I'm actually significantly more upset by this happening than I anticipated. Oh, damn it. Yeah, bollocks. As always, if you like the show, if you want to see more of what we're doing, please like the show. If you think other people that you know would like the show, share the show. If you want to see more of what we're doing, subscribe. There's a link here, unless we still have the link to the video of me doing a horrible cinnamon challenge there. Yeah, share us on your social network of choice. Hit me up on Twitter if you've got any science stories that you want me to hear, or if you want me to do a 5-second fact, you can see me spew it out of my face hole for you. So that would be great. And right, I'm now going to go to the garden to do the cinnamon challenge, because I've seen videos of how it goes and I don't want to do it somewhere that I can't clean up with a hose. Anyway, toodaloo, and until next time, good luck in your endeavours if your endeavours be good. Goodbye.